Okay, people. So today I have got George Louis Bartlett and Ryan Walker Edwards. So George wrote and directed Demons, and Ryan's the scallywag who is starring in the film.
Hey.
Right?
That's a nice introduction. It's a nice introduction. Yeah, I like that.
Right. No, one thing that oh, what have I done? Okay. One thing that I thought was very interesting, like it always, like you think, oh, how did that come about, right? Because the film's like introducing Ryan Walker Edwards, so you always wonder, like, oh, so what does that mean? Like, you were walking down the street one day and they saw you and were like, hey, you want to be in this film? Come on. How did the involvement all come around? Because I take it this is your like first feature, right?
Yeah, my first feature. I think that one was really sort of like working with George. I mean, George and I, we both went to the same school in Birmingham. We worked on a few short films when we were around about sort of like 16. And then, went off to do our things, lived the life, university, working. And then George then approached me with Theo McDonald, who's the co-writer with George. And they were like, yeah, let's, do this kind of like weird demon thing. And yeah, we came together and did that.
Cool. And
Yeah.
George, where did the story come from?
Well, I used to live in Germany, and the train system there is nationalized, and so if you don't pay a fine, you have to go to court and like maybe go to jail for a couple of days. And so I didn't go to jail, but kind of narrowly avoided it. But have ever since kind of been haunted by this faceless authority of I don't know, being done for a small amount of money that I didn't even know I had to pay. And so when me and Theo were bouncing ideas to do something, because it kind of came from a practical place of let's just go and make a movie.
Yeah.
That I'd previously worked with Ryan like at that last summer on a short film for Channel 4, and so that relationship was freshly renewed, as it were, and it just kind of, the Ryan and my experiences kind of just slotted well together.
Interesting. Okay. Because I liked the choices that were made visually, right? So was black and white a budgetary constraint, or was that just, to best tell this story, let's start off like this, let's do it in this manner?
Both, I think. I think what we've tried to do was write a film within our budgetary constraints. So we knew that we could make a B movie in black and white for the money that we had. So we wrote a B movie in black and white, a kind of that was inspired by these 40s film noir, Poverty Road type movies. And that also happened to fit kind of in a serendipitous way with the story and with this idea of a guy on the run, and being young in England today, I guess. So the black and white actually was how I saw the film at first. I got scared, and then we did a teaser in color, and it just didn't work. And so we were just like, let's go with our gut. It's also going to be more controllable. We can do more things with black and white with the amount of money that we have. So it was a bit of both, I'd say.
Okay. I mean, I really like the black and white, myself. And I thought then it works with the memories in color, right? Because I think the way I kind of thought about it was like the black and white is the drudgery, right? It's this current situation, and the happy times are the memories. So that's in color, and it makes sense kind of from that point of view. So I like, that's how it kind of jumped off to me, and I enjoyed it in that way,
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Ryan, what do you think about that?
To be honest, the going back and sort of like, you know, shooting these sort of segments in color were sort of like the best thing. Because I think it just added a little bit more to the sort of like backstory of the movie and Ralph's character. So I think that was a decision that we kind of made collectively, just to add further context to the film and what the character Ralph was going through. So yeah.
Okay. And how do you think Ralph should be perceived in this?
You know what? Ralph is an anti-hero. Ralph is not sort of Ralph isn't he's not meant to be sort of like the sort of like, you know, hero saves a day. Like, he's essentially just a human where, you know, he goes through the good things and the bad things, and he makes bad situations. But I mean, that's kind of like what we all do in life. So I think Ralph is sort of like just meant to be perceived as he is, where he is a character who has flaws, but then he's also trying to do well as well. So yeah.
Yeah. I see it. There's definitely times I'm thinking, Ralph, you arsehole.
Yeah. That is definitely the thing. And it was quite interesting when we were sort of like filming it. You know, I was going back to sort of George and Theo, like, oh, like, you know, Ralph, is he not like? And sort of George and Theo were saying, no, like, he needs, you know, he's not meant to be like this sort of like, you know, character. He's got his flaws, and he does make mistakes where when you are watching the film, you're like, oh my gosh, like, really, bro, really. And I think that's, you know, the irony of it, really. Like, he just keeps digging himself into this bigger hole where it just becomes, you know, it's above him at the end of it. Yeah.
But he then puts a blanket over the woman, and you're just like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing this, Ralph? I'm hating you at the moment, but then you're redeeming yourself. Stop it.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, it's talking to George, because we did like talk about that situation. You as sort of like the director and writer, George, like, what was including that scene? Like, how did you sort of like come to that?
I think Kevin hit the nail on the head. It wasn't put in there, I think, to change the audience's opinion of Ralph. And I think, you know, Ralph's quite close to both me, Ryan, and Theo, actually. Like, we're all slightly neurotic in our own way. And that sometimes comes out in... That's why that's why it comes out, and it can come out in ways that are really annoying to other people, you know. But I think this guy, you know, sees this woman, and she's doesn't look particularly cold, but he figures that he'll turn off the noisy machine and let her get some sleep. And with that, I guess, comes the almost motherly action of putting the blanket over Carla. But I mean, Kevin, what did you make of Ralph in the end? Like, what's your final weighing up of his heart?
I mean, I've known people like Ralph, right? The amount of times there's, you know, back in the day, that was the thing, you know, like getting into London, right, from where I used to live. So I used to live just outside of London. And so me and my friends would go into London, you know, go clubbing at the weekend and all of that. Sometimes you didn't have money for the train, right? So it's like jumping off trains and all of this. And sometimes people got caught. And so you'd have your friends be like, oh, I got a ticket on the train. And then you'd be like, not going to pay it. And then you'd be like, see him next, you'd be like, oh, I've got this letter. It says I owe this amount of money. And we're like, why didn't you pay the fine? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you pay the first fine? And then be like, and you see him again and be like, oh yeah, so now they're saying I owe this much, and be like, Jesus Christ, paid the money, man. And it just builds and builds. And you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it makes you anxious. You're just like, God damn it. So you know that person, right? And you know the person that they're not terrible, right? They're not a terrible person, but sometimes they are a bit about themselves, right? And I think we see that in Ralph. You know, like he gets the help from his friend, but the help isn't quite like how Ralph wants it. So it's just like, for fuck's sake, man. Like, what you do? It's like, there's no gratitude. There's no like, oh, thanks, man. You really helped me. And he's like, well, you bring my laptop. Well, yeah, I thought you might. Yeah, you can take it. right? And it's just like, jeez, Ralph, say thank you, man. So you're watching it and you understand, right? I think you understand Ralph. There are moments when you're just like, oh, you really fucked up now. But at the end of it, you redeem him because we then see, oh, he didn't do the thing that you feared he might have done, right? There's that one thing that you're thinking, why did you do that? Like all the other stuff is kind of weird, crazy, but you can understand. Then there's that one thing that you're just like, Ralph, what the fuck? I like that. I can't back you on that. That's the one thing I can't back you on, man. But then we realize, okay, cool. So it's all spiraling and everything. But then you see these moments, like I felt the blanket over the woman for me, it felt kind of like, because, you know, with his dad gone, he's the man in the house. So he was probably helping his mum out, right? So it kind of was a flashback to that. So he's probably come home sometimes, his mum's been working, he's put the blanket over her. And then with the lorry, his dad being a lorry driver. So you get that whole thing towards the end, and then it's just like, what the fuck am I doing, man? Right? Because then we get the flash back and all of that. And so it's a bit like you have all of these kind of pulls on Ralph throughout the film. So you're kind of like, okay, right? Okay. I'm fine with Ralph. I was a bit like, I don't know if I want him completely getting away with shit. But you know, I get it. I get it. Right? That's how I kind of viewed it all. But I just think, hope he clears it up with his boy, because you're a shit, Ralph.
That's one the feedback that we kind of sort of got at the end. It's like, oh, has he cleared it up with Kent? He's played by Jacob Hawley. Has he cleared it up? Has he cleared it up? Because, you know, there is that sort of like thing there where Kent wants sort of like the best for Ralph, but doesn't really know how to do it. And with the sort of like, you know, the tape recorder at the end where he explains everything, with like, it doesn't really matter what Ralph's going through, he's still there for him. It's quite like a nice sort of like, you know, touch on it, but then it escalates again with the situation that he gets into. So yeah.
Although I will say, when you do see him again, you do need to slap him, right? Because that's your dad's tape. He went and recorded over your dad's tape. Like, what are you doing? I mean, it's not like you could get this shit back. He's just ruined this tape, this memory, this one memento and he's gone and put his dirty little voice all over it. So he does need a slap for that. I will co-sign that. You know what I mean?
All right, That probably what would happen if there ever was sort of like a part to it. Would sort of be, oh mate, good to see you, but listen, why did you do that? So that'd be quite cool.
Oh man! So how long did this all take to film?
We shot it over. I'm sorry about my video, by the way. It's all.
It's fine, man.
We shot it over 12 days, Ryan.
Yeah, 12 days. Then there was
black and white stuff.
Yeah, then there's pickups as well. So 12 days.
Nice. And were there many changes from the original script? Like, did you go back and be like, actually, that doesn't work, let's add this instead, you know, or is it pretty much what was envisioned from the very start?
I mean, Ryan, I'm interested to hear what you have to say, but I also would add that it's strange because the film feels exactly how me and Theo, I'm not sure if Theo feels the same, but exactly how when we were talking about it, I wanted the film to feel. But we did make loads of changes. Like, we went back and added stuff. And I mean, Ryan, from the first read to the movie, what do you think?
I think, there were a few changes. I think what was kind of like surprising is I think just the changes that were made were great, because like I said before, it sort of added more context to what was going on, because the film is slightly weird and crazy and that sort of stuff. But yeah, there were a few scenes which were kind of like in there with like, you know, the fight scene with the bailiff, David Shaw, that was slightly changed. But it was all kind of based on sort of like location and sort of like what we could do like within the budget as well. So yeah, that's why I saw most of the changes. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the changes were additions. You know, I also edited the movie, so which is a good thing and a nightmare at the same time, because I literally would wake up in the middle of the night, go to my computer and make a change, and that's not healthy. And it was like that for like 12 months, you know, maybe longer, 18 months. So lots of little changes, but the structure of the script was the same. I mean, I'm not sure if like about spoilers or whatever, but that thing you were talking about earlier that we find out he didn't actually do. Well, that the shot that reveals that was like we shot it, but it was never actually in the cut until I locked the picture, until like the last cut, you know. So
okay,
it was a conversation that we had, you know, quite differing opinions on. Do we need to know that he didn't do this thing, really, you know? So it's just things like that really that changed. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I think the film still would have worked without it. But I did think it was that amusing little add-on at the end. You know what I mean? To see what happened with him, and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What might happen in his next few hours.
Yep.
And I think, you know, the desire for me not to put it in came from the audience doesn't need to know that, you know. But I think from a character point of view, you know, you're right, Ralph is annoying in his own little ways, and he does do things that, you know, he has these idiosyncrasies that maybe that other thing would just be too far for the audience to go with him. But I think then the fact that that didn't happen, we're like, okay, you know, we're with you, Ralph. And also, we know that the bailiff, in his own little way, is going to get his comeuppance for being such a nutter.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did like that little, you know what I mean, that little aside at the end. I mean, that worked for me. But yeah, no, as a first feature, I was like, huh, interesting. Right? Because like I just think you took some nice little, you know, steps with it, you know, like the red like imagery, the black and white, like just all of these little things, and some of the angles and, you know, in which you use to shoot the scene, like just like in the bath, it's not a face on, it's just slightly to the side and down, so you're viewing it at that certain angle. You know, I mean, when we first see Ryan, it's a real close up on him playing the video games. It's just certain scenes just really works.
Oh man, I'm flattered that you felt that. Yeah, I have to give. I'm just gonna put my light on. It might change I have to obviously thank. Oh my god, that's better. I have to thank Shen Yu, who we know as Sunshine, who is the cinematographer on the film, and she like leveled out all of us lads, as it were. I mean, we're not lads, but you know, we were kind of in it from the beginning. The first assistant was also a good friend of mine, and so there was she brought along with her own crew, which was all female, and my wife was also producing. But there was this real nice balance, and through that, there was this calmness that me and her could make serious decisions about these strange things, you know. And so like the look is as much hers as it is mine, you know. And I think we had conversations about, because a lot of the old noir movies are shot quite, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are lots of interesting things that they did, but I think we wanted to be a little bit more, I don't want to say expressionistic, but like that sort of thing, you know, we wanted it to feel a bit more dreamy. And so also because we knew we could get away with it, and because we don't have anyone with money telling us what to do or what not to do, and I knew I was going to edit it. So I mean, even the sequence with the fighting, we shot that as a fight scene, and it was a conversation that we had back and forward, you know, about what are we going to do with it. And so I guess in a long-winded way, I'm saying it was like the visual style and the strangeness that you're alluding to, or like the interesting things, I think were a product of collective thought and Ryan's great face.
Oh, cheers. Thank you, bro.
Hey, I think, you know, making a first feature, it's the time to take those bold steps, right? Because you can experiment, you can try things out, and you know, because it's hard to find your voice with things, right? Because when you're first doing things, you're always going to have a slight attachment to certain creatives that have left an impression on you. So as you're going on, you're finding your own voice, and you only do that by taking, you know, chances with things. So it's like, yeah, it's an interesting thing to do. Like, who were your kind of the inspirations that kind of got you into this, and whose visual styles you're like, oh, I like that. I'd like to try and incorporate that into what I do. And yeah, George, I'd like Ryan.
Yeah.
Actors who you like and you think,
I'd like to give
I'd like to have a strong performance like that person. And that kind of.
Kevin, that's a hard question. The movie that comes to mind straight away is Eraserhead, and that was like a defining moment in my cinema education. And like I remember seeing that. I was about 13 or 14. Someone gave me this DVD and I put it on, and I was like, you can make movies like this. That, like, I had no idea that American cinema could be this fucking crazy. And so just the darkness and I mean, obviously the black and white, but Lynch's stuff after that it's just so, I don't need to say, and I can't really say anything about Lynch, but I guess Lynch is a massive, his earlier stuff is a massive unignorable, if I can say that, influence on what I want to do, I guess. But I think you're right, and I think about the idea of finding your voice and the importance of finding one's voice, and these things that you mentioned about the red and some strange shots, choices, or whatever. They're already starting to enter my writing, and now I have like a better idea of when I'm writing, I can see the movie that I can see my quirks, you know, even though I want to go into the process with a completely open mind. Yeah, Ryan, what about you?
I think when I was sort of like doing this film in terms of actors who I looked at, it was sort of like looking at actors who were quite sort of like the anti-hero or likable sort of villains. So it was kind of, Vincent Cassel was someone who kind of comes to mind because we did see like Lahane, and it was kind of like the same, well, not really the same thing, but in terms of like the style and like it being black and white was definitely a thing. And then sort of like looking at quite like stoic characters, so I looked at sort of like Tilda Swinton as well, who was, you know, great because it's just how she sort of carries herself on screen. So it was sort of getting that sort of like mellow stoic character for Ralph, and which performers I could see or look at who kind of had that. So there were two sort of like people who I looked at.
Cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I always just find that interesting. Like, you know what I mean? In like the things that compel people and bring people into stuff. Right? That's always an interesting thing. So from doing all of this, right, has it gestated any new ideas, any new collaborations? What is next, guys?
So you know what, the process of this was great. As George was saying, there wasn't these I was brought on sort of as talent, but I mean, in terms of sort of like producers and filmmakers, I really sort of like got to work closely with them and see like what was kind of being done. And it was all about sort of like collaboration, DIYing, pulling all your sort of like connections together. So outside of kind of acting, I was sort of like doing like electronic music and like, you know, running my own sort of like electronic platform. And that's really how we sort of like got the score involved with a guy called Sempra, Andrew Fuller. So he then helped George. So to answer your question, I think it's just really, you know, utilizing sort of like the friends and the people we have and networking in that way. And you know, you can create like good art really. And that's hopefully what I plan to go forward with. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it follows on from your question, Kevin, about or your observation about voice and stuff. And I'm just not scared about what not to do or what to do. It's just about what is the idea and what do I want to do. And I'm able now to separate that from like stuff that I'm writing for other people or work, you know. And I think that there is this space that has been established. I'm working with Sunshine on a short film, which is made completely from CCTV footage because we don't have I don't know, it'll be a nightmare getting insurance and stuff for a crew. And it also serves the idea, but I think what was established there, even if other people don't, you know, some people don't come onto another project with us for various reasons, was that we can all go off and do our own thing for money or for love or whatever. But I do feel that if it's not in 2 or 3 years, in 5, 6 years, there is another film where we're all gonna have this safe environment, however, I don't know, utopian that sounds, to just do something that we feel is worth giving ourselves completely to. And like I think Ryan underplays actually how much he was involved from the start. And because Ryan, you were there since before we even saw a script, you know. So me and Theo were in the movie with Ryan in mind, and he was there in casting, and he was there in production meeting. So it was all it was a massive collective effort. And Joel Petrikis, a guy, he's an American filmmaker. He made a movie that me and Theo love called Buzzard. He talks about this idea of a film band, and that's kind of why I started the production companies as Zetson, because I felt like, you know, when you make music, you can jam and stuff. And I know it's free, and I know that making films is different. But I think with technology the way it is, and if you have some friends that you can trust each other, then there is time and space to operate as a kind of film band, you know, to jam in a way before you then go, okay, this is where we're going to put all our energy, and for 2 weeks we're all in, you know. And I guess to answer your question, we know that can be done, so I'm not afraid anymore, you know.
Oh, that's great, man.
It was really saying though, you're right about sort of like the band on set and sort of like, you know, working with, you know, you guys from sort of like pre-production to sort of post-production. There was this sense of that you kind of felt free to sort of like, you know, explore and sort of experiment, because it is quite an experimental film. So that definitely was there in terms of, you know, the set. We definitely looked up there with Sunshine and all the crew. Like it was great, man. It was really good. Yeah.
Ah, superb. And yeah, I think that's something you do see from certain creators, that every film they're working with a lot of the same people, right? Because they built up those bonds, those trusts, that chemistry. So I think it's a valid thing to take forward, and especially to, I think, realize that from the giddy up, that's probably gonna, you know, serve you extremely well. You know, it's a great foundation to have. So yeah, I do look forward to see what's next, guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks.
No, I really appreciate your time. So
Thanks for having us.
where can people keep track of you, as it were?
Cool. I'll do the socials. So you can follow us on Instagram. That is Demon Movie, so at Demon Movie. And then on Facebook, I think we are Escape Forest Lodge, which is the hotel from the film.
Right,
and then if you just want to follow all my personal shenanigans, it's Ryan Walker Ed. That's Ryan Walker ED.
Yeah, my personal the production company Instagram is the Zetsung Film, and my personal on everything is George L. Bartlett.
Outstanding. Okay, so I'll include that in the episode information. But yeah, guys, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time, and I hope this is a huge success for you.
Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dude. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
No worries, man. No worries at all. All right.
Cool.